I'm very sorry. I made a mistake. It won't happen again.
It happened a year ago. King Juan Carlos apologized to the Spanish people for going off on a hunting trip to Africa while his country was in the midst of an economic crisis. The apology came shortly after a corruption scandal involving the king's son-in-law accused of embezzling millions of euros.
The king's mea culpa was greatly tarnished by events that the Spanish media discovered gradually, with surprise, disbelief and anger. The new revelations have tarnished the king's image. So the apology was a strong message, but failed somewhat.
The king's headache started years earlier in Palma de Majorca, the royal family's traditional holiday destination. It was on the Balearic island that Iñaki Urdangarin, the husband of the king's youngest daughter, is alleged to have signed lucrative deals through a non-profit organisation he headed. The king's son-in-law is accused of having massively overcharged local authorities for organising sporting events, and his wife, Princess Cristina, is now also formally named as a suspect in the investigation. The scandal is part of the so-called Palma Arena affair that centres on the suspected embezzlement of public funds during the construction of a velodrome. It also involves ex-government minister and former head of the Balearic Islands regional government, Jaume Matas, charged with a string of accusations including embezzlement and fraud. Journalist Andreu Manresa covered the case.
This building symbolizes an era under the leadership of Jaume Matas, a former minister under Aznar. He was first sentenced to 6 years in jail for some of the events that were discovered here. Palma Arena was built in haste for the World Cycling Championships and cost 3 times more than initially planned. An investigation into the cost overrun concluded that Matas allegedly embezzled these public subsidies and payments.
With both the princess and her husband under investigation for allegedly diverting public funds, it's the first time since democracy was restored in Spain that a direct member of King Carlos's family faces preliminary charges of any kind. The Duke has denied any wrongdoing and claims his wife was unaware of his business deals. As the scandal deepens, so does the dent in the credibility of the Spanish royal family.
Princess Cristina is a co-owner of one of the companies which her husband, Iñaki Urdangarin, used to personally invoice and bill for sums which are at the heart of the suspected tax fraud.
A rare television interview granted by the king has done nothing to improve the situation. An interview during which the monarch refused to discuss leaked emails on the Urdangarin case, which allegedly prove that he was aware of his son-in-law's activities, and that it was even he who suggested Urdangarin move to Washington to avoid the scandal. Revelations by a so-called special friend of the king have only made things worse. Corinna Sayn-Wittgenstein's name first became public knowledge after she appeared as the mystery woman who accompanied King Juan Carlos to Botswana on his elephant hunt. Sayn-Wittgenstein's help did not stop at joining him on a safari. She also tried, at the king's beckoning, to find his embattled son-in-law a job and claims to have done secret unpaid work for the Spanish government. Spain's formerly revered royal family is suffering its worst credibility crisis in decades. This play at Barcelona's Victoria Theatre is proof enough. A musical staging a surreal caricature of the royal family.
The Spanish people have gradually lost any fear. So they think, why not make a parody of the royals? If you can make religious, political or social parodies, why not make one of the king? So we decided to go ahead without losing sight of our main objective, which is to make people laugh. And we're going to make people laugh a lot with this theme, because it's broad, and we've reached a point where reality has overtaken fiction.
Royalists remain faithful to their king. They are adamant the crown is a source of stability for the country. Pedro Schwenzer is the president of the European Monarchic Association. Though he admits that the image of the monarchy has suffered from the scandal, he says this has nothing to do with the royal institution, but with someone close to the royal family by marriage. The affair, he says, in no way puts into question the existence of the monarchy.
Obviously, the royal household has been very indecisive. Its discourse should have been clearer in order to ensure the proper professional behavior of the princess's husband. But maybe it didn't want to attract attention, and so it's just let things evolve, without taking into account the repercussions of the fact that some of the operations were questionable.
He believes the answer is for the king to step down in favour of his son Felipe, a move he's convinced would help rejuvenate the image of the monarchy. But can a king abdicate under Spanish law? The answer is yes. It is a purely personal decision, which can be decided neither by parliament nor public referendum.
It's an institution which answers to history, to non-democratic criteria, in the sense that it's an inherited post. The democratic dimension of the monarchy is contained in the constitution, which includes it as a part of the government.
Critics say one of the major failings of the current system is the royal household's lack of accountability, along with the king's salary. He earns close to €300,000 a year, that's 4 times the Prime Minister's wage.
I believe the monarch's public activities should be completely transparent. It's different to the head of state's private activities, which he must carry out as a responsible person with fairness and with respect to the fundamental principles of the state.
Debe ejercer su cargo con la debida probidad y adecuación a los principios constitucionales básicos del Estado.
Some experts believe it's time for the monarchy to carry out its own transition, to make civic exemplarity a norm.
It's up to him whether he wants to end his reign in a dignified manner by handing over properly, or if it will be hastened and even more degraded without any proper transition, forcing Spanish society as a whole to think hard about the institution of the head of state.
Surveys reveal 8 out of 10 Spaniards feel Crown Prince Felipe is ready to take over, while the king's popularity has been on a constant slide since his African safari.